HO Talk Show. I am HO Talk Show.
Right.
It's your boy, Sir Charles.
And Max.
And we are joined right now to continue this conversation, Max. You know, like I love how things just organically come together. And this is another one of those shows to where, we just had to do our best and let God do the rest. And we was like, you know what? This is a data analytics kind of show. This is the kind of show, and this is a great way to start off the year, Max, as we were talking about, because it's like, all right, 2026, so much has changed, so much is the same. So how are we going to address it? And this gentleman that we have with us right now that we're about to introduce, he is a man that this is going to be a great conversation because he and I disagree a little bit on this, right? It's a little different perspectives, but he is a man where it says you always follow that data. The data answers all the questions. If you have good data, then that means you can get good results, right? And so I'm talking about none other than Ckalib Nelson. Ckalib, how you doing, my brother?
Good. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, go ahead and get comfy, man. Go ahead and get intimate with that microphone right there.
Yeah. So you're a guy who needs a study done for everything. To tell you what you know.
Yeah, as much data as I can get, I will definitely use.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And I said that in jest because there's a lot of truth to that, right? But it's always interesting, it's kind of like how we were just talking to Dr. Jones Lewis about when you think about community schools, you think about all the stakeholders, right? There's a human element that comes into play with everything. Until we start talking about the AI thing, like that's sort of an extension of this conversation, right? But as of right now, the robots have not taken over, right? But
beware.
but that being said, when it comes to collecting data and the importance of it, now who better than to look at the outlook for this 2026 year, following the good doctor of community schools, but then a man that has contributed to us as well, Max, through Charlottesville Inclusive Media. He has been a partner, sharing some of his studies and his work with us, Ckalib Nelson. And you're also a board director for Computers for Kids, right?
Yeah, nice. I've been the board chair for C4K for 3 years, and I'm on the board of CIC Community Investment Collaborative, and then Live Arts. So
nice.
If I'm not working or when I'm not working, I try to dedicate my time and effort to the community.
I love it. So
now hold on for a second before we move on. Make that make sense. Like draw the parallels.
That's what I was going to say.
So we're talking data, we're talking computers, and then Live Arts.
Very different communities. But I was fortunate to be introduced to Live Arts when they did Ragtime. And I don't know how familiar y'all are with Ragtime, but Ragtime was one of the most successful performances at Live Arts. I think they got the revenue of that show was greater than the revenue of the following 9 shows combined.
Data.
Yeah, exactly. I went straight to it. That changed the community, and this is post August 2017, right? And Ragtime is a very racially sensitive sort of play. If you are familiar with it at all. But yeah, love that community. But I guess a little bit of context and background for myself. I've been in data for 10 years. I did a master's in data science, currently a business intelligence engineer in the tech community. And I guess the one contribution that I've been able to give Charlottesville from a data perspective is an application that's readily available to anybody that has access to the internet called the Charlottesville Crime Data Dashboard. So if you're interested in what is going on in the city in terms of crime and calls into police, you can go to my dashboard to look at data over the past 5 years and really dive into what is going on in your neighborhood, what's going on in your zip code, what's going on your street level from a crime perspective. And I hope to build upon that in the future by incorporating other data sets. So.
And I know that you said you said Charlottesville, but that includes Albemarle County, correct?
So no, the data is strictly for the city.
Just the city limits. Okay.
I forgot the 5 zip codes or 6 zip codes that includes, but yeah.
Got it.
Now, what got you here, Ckalib, as far because you're very passionate about it, right? And it could do so much good, but was there sort of a social event or something that happened to where, that made you just stop and be like, we need to address this differently? Like what,
That's a good question, Charles. So it was February, I think the last week of February 2025, where we had, I forgot what date exactly, but there was a gentleman that was stopped by the cops. I think he didn't have a license or expired tag, something like that. He dipped off on the cops, hit some cars, ran off on foot, and was apprehended 7 days later.
Okay.
2 days after that, you had a gentleman near Alumni Hall stab someone, and he was apprehended pretty quickly, I think within like 5 hours.
Okay.
That was the first time since the 3 students who were tragically murdered, the school had been, what's the phrase, but put on lockdown.
Okay.
And I, being the very curious person I am, I tried to find a data source or some sort of material that would tell me about crime in the city so I can understand like what is going on holistically. I couldn't find a single source that would give me a clear enough picture. So I decided to build a tool myself using data that I thought wasn't being used sufficiently. So the city of Charlottesville actually has data on crime, on arrest, on real estate, on economics, on demographics. And I was able to tap into that data and ultimately build an application that informed me about what was going on in the city from a crime perspective, from a public safety perspective. It wasn't until I actually built it that I realized that it was valuable to anybody, right? And so that's what kind of encouraged me to reach out to, I think I sent an email to you and the Siebel brothers earlier last year. I reached out to various organizations like nonprofits and stuff. And eventually got the attention of Charlottesville Tomorrow. And that is what kind of, I guess, triggered my relationship with a lot of people that had the same sort of interests or need for understanding about what is going on from a public safety perspective. So that has brought me here. And now I have so many more ideas because I feel like there's more data to collect and more data to get insight from.
Now, has there been any pushback? Have you... like, do you get those calls, where people be disguising their voice and just breathing on the phone because they don't want you exposing this information?
Fortunately not. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, no, I don't want to be a target. Right. But if I have to be, I'll do what's best.
But, because I'm curious as well about when you look at quantity and, versus quality, right? Philosophically, how do you approach data, and particularly that data? And I say particularly that data, like that you aforementioned, that's kind of, catapulted this, sector of your work, is because we all see those numbers where people will be like, majority of I'm just throwing something out there, for example, majority of Black males are incarcerated, right? But then people will then look at, well, are you talking about the quantity of the number that are in prison, or are you talking about the percentage of the prison population? You know what I mean? So when you look at like quantity versus percentage, right? Philosophically, how do you think data is best presented so that people don't skew it to prove their point? You know what I mean? Because they say numbers don't lie.
Sure.
But it depends how you use the numbers, right?
Yeah. I think I'm understanding where you're going.
Yeah. Philosophically.
Yeah. So from let me be clear that the application that I built tells you what were the calls into 911 and what were they in regards to, and where did those offenses take place? So if you want to know, if you live in a neighborhood and you want to know what sort of calls went into the police, you can look at the offenses that were called into from your neighborhood, right? Now, I think that you can show that data in a few ways. I think like number of offenses in a neighborhood is a good insight, but what might also be helpful is what percentage of offenses occurred in one neighborhood relative to other neighborhoods. And that would give you an idea of, which neighborhoods are suffering more than others, blase. So I think that the best way to present data is in a very fair and unbiased way. And that was probably what I tried to focus on the most in building the application. I did not want to build something that would push someone towards a perspective or some sort of opinion. I wanted to build an application that would give a user the opportunity to learn about their community and walk away with insights about that community from their exploration, and kind of promote a conversation around what the domain is, which is public safety, using data. So
is there a way to avoid that though? It seems to me that by looking at the data and I haven't visited your app or your website, but filtering the data, it still can create a certain narrative if the person that looking at it, utilizing it, intends for it to.
Yeah. If someone sees that, I'm just throwing this out there, but someone sees that FIFIL is responsible for like 11% of the offenses in a year, and that 11% is greater than the percentage of other neighborhoods in the area, they might say, oh, well, FIFIL is obviously the problem. Let's actually just focus on addressing a whole bunch of issues in FIFIL and put more police officers in FIFIL. You just came up with a solution that really, in my opinion, doesn't really address the problem.
Okay.
Like, FIFIL could be responsible for a certain percentage of the offenses, but let's actually build a more equitable solution to helping that community not be a victim of something. Because you're kind of pointing them or making them look like the problem. I think the obviously the sort of data literacy that we have is probably very low. So people might filter for something or see something and come up with unsubstantiated claims or ideas from that data. But I hope to actually prevent that. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you finished your thought.
No, I think that was it.
Okay. I want to loop back and make sure I didn't miss something. So were you saying it was both or either or when it comes to your initial input? Is the 911 calls, or is it when an arrest is filed?
It's a great question, Charles. Okay. So there's actually two public safety data sets that the city puts together. One is crime, what they call crime, and the other one is arrest. Okay. Now, I plan on jumping into the arrest data at some point. Okay. But that data is a little bit more sensitive.
Yes.
Because they actually show the names, the race, the gender of individuals that were obviously arrested, right? So that presents me with a moral dilemma, in my opinion, because as a data scientist, I have the choice to mask these individuals' names or not mask those individuals' names. I think the sort of approach that I would take would be to actually anonymize it, just not allow those names to be seen and just be like person A, person B, so on and so forth. But still show that, these individuals are being arrested for X, these individuals are being arrested for Y. And just to, because I think the crime data is, of course, important. But what is also important is, what are people actually getting arrested for? And it paints a kind of bigger picture. Just think of it as a puzzle. Like right now I have one piece, and if I had another piece, which would be represented by arrest, we have a clear, not a complete, but a clearer understanding of the puzzle of society of our community.
Yes. And in my perspective, Max, is that the crime data I feel like would be more reliable versus the arrest, right? Because when you look at arrests, then that adds the nuance, right, or the factor of, is that neighborhood being over policed? So it may not necessarily be that there's more crime in the neighborhood, but if you're being over policed, that's automatically going to lend you more arrests, right?
That's a great idea that can be tested. And I think that sort of test is what we want to do. So if let's say that you have let's go back to the FIFO, and I'm only using FIFO because I live in FIFO.
Yeah, shouts out to FIFO.
Yeah, for sure. Let's say that 10% of 10% of the offenses occur in FIFO, right? But then you have, hypothetically, I do not know, 20% of all arrests occur in FIFO. Okay, so you have FIFO being responsible for a certain percentage of crime that is reported, and then double the percentage in arrest. To determine if that is a problem or not, if that is what someone might call fair, we should dive into the data. If the data gives us reason to believe that we are suffering from something unfairly, then that needs to be a public discussion. And the good thing about that sort of research coming before a public discussion is that now you have more or less a very much so supported idea to address in the public. This is a problem. This is a research. We use, statistics, so on and so forth, to come to an idea, and we want to present this idea to understand why is it happening. So I like your idea about the crime being more reliable. although I wouldn't necessarily put it that way. I think that having crime data and arrest data would allow us to have a greater understanding of our community.
Yes. Yeah. Well, two things come to mind as you were talking. The first is, of course, that by providing this information to members of the community, you forfeit the ability to kind of control how they choose to use it. So while your intention is to provoke understanding and conversation and hopefully a solution to a problem, others may very well use it as a tool to support the argument that this particular neighborhood with that these particular type of people happen to live in are more problematic, and here is the reason for that argument, the basis for that argument, so that it just came to mind as you were talking about your hopes for providing the data.
If I may interject, you provide one platform for everybody to use. If you have a certain claim and that claim cannot be supported well, now it is a debate. Now there is discourse. And if you want to have very strong opinions, and if you want to support your claims, come to the table prepared. Otherwise, I would suggest that you sit back and just listen. So yeah, I can see how it can be used in a malicious manner. And I honestly expect that, and will always expect that. But you will probably be challenged. And that challenge is what we need in our community.
The other thing I wanted to note is that I could understand a person's argument that it may be worthwhile to include the ethnicity of the individuals who are charged with a crime or arrested, because it could further lend some basis or proof that in a certain neighborhood or a group of people are arrested at a much higher rate than others, And I understand your argument for not including that information, but
I definitely would not exclude the race attribute from the data. My comment earlier was names of individuals. In my day-to-day work, I cannot see people's names in data.
I misunderstood then. Misunderstood.
And
the more data, the better, right?
Yeah, but there are laws and regulations preventing personally identifiable data to be, readily available to the public. So I'd like to respect that as much as I could.
I want to thank you for everything that you're doing today.
For sure. Yeah.
I was listening to y'all when I was out doing something, and y'all having a very good interview. It was giving me a lot of triggers, listening to the three of y'all. And for me, the pushback I would have is when Charles said more data, better. It's not in America because of racism. Data brings on racism. And then when I believe Max was talking about adding the ethnicities of other people, the data I would like to see is, let's say we got 10 officers, 8 white, 1 black, 1 Hispanic, right? I'd like to see, if you arrest 10 people, how many of them look like what? That's the data I would want to see. But I also know, looking at what happened to that thing over in Minnesota, is when you expose certain biases, then you're going to get something past pushback, which is you're going to run into racism. I believe that all officers, and this is just Razor's opinion, right? I believe that the majority of officers are racist. I don't believe, and that's including the black ones, I don't believe that the majority of officers are bigots. I believe that when they do go out to do their job, they look to see what is going to keep their sector the most safe. So then the data that would come from that is, okay, if you have, 5 traffic stops to whatever you have, what do those individuals look like? And from that point, you can decide whether the Ku Klux Klan is still running the police departments in America,
That's a good point. So I think your point then is that the crime numbers could be accurate, right? But then it's kind of the human element is like, why is the crime that high? It's not, it's not necessarily because a majority that's more dense with African Americans is the problem. It could be because they're being profiled, right? Like, so then that's what's like pushing your data is because they're being profiled, not because they're necessarily doing more illegal activity. Is that?
Yeah, but the blacks cannot, black people, the blacks, I sound 1940, what's my bad. African American people, black people, whatever title you choose to give them, do not control any sector. If you're talking about a 12.5 mile spot here in Charlottesville, and I'm going to just use one that I know, Hardy Drive is only 400 yards long. You can't call that a sector of the city. You know what I'm saying? It is, but it's small. But it's smaller than like the high school football field or the land on the football field. So if we got 50 officers that the majority of their arrests are coming from that, you're shooting. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. So those are the numbers that really are going to tell you what you're dealing with, because once it goes over to the racist mindset, then the data is only going to show that the system is working. And if the system of oppression is what everything is built on, it's never going to change.
I understand that. I can't fully agree with it, mainly because I feel like the only way that we can understand if there are bias operations bias operations going on within a community, we have to look at the data. So when Charles said the more data, the better, I imagine looking at that data to uncover, which communities may be targeted, which communities may not be targeted. These are ideas that need to be tested. And if after testing, they are actually very much so believable, you can go to whoever is responsible for those operations and demand change. Now you have sufficient reason to, I don't want to use the word attack, but debate, officials or what is the word I'm looking for? Someone who has authority over, a certain jurisdiction or whatever, and say, hey, these are the things that we've noticed. This is the data that you are actually responsible for and putting together. We think this needs to be looked at and possibly changed because this seems very unfavorable and unfair.
I appreciate what you created, but my grandparents knew everything that's in your data before there was ever this thing that you created. Like, we didn't need to, I could have thrown a number. Now, this isn't discrediting anything you say, and I hope that you don't look at it like that way. Yep. I can say 15%. I could just make up those numbers and get them, Charles, to print them out on a piece of paper and turn them in. I already knew beforehand of the disproportions that you're talking about because we lived them, right? And they know because they watch them, That's the reason when the 911s call in that the little black kid that don't look like he can be over here is walking through a neighborhood and get killed with some Skittles in his hand. You know what I'm saying? Because these things already exist. What I appreciate what you're doing by saying, okay, now we have data and paperwork, right? But the fact of the matter is now we have to get from what you're doing to the people in the judicial system that are going to make it. And they don't care because they're making money off of it,
So it's like the cause and effect, because I was actually just thinking that. And I think I hear what you're saying. So like Ckalib, sort of the evolution of the data, right, is because it's almost like, okay, so the data is telling us sort of where we are and what's happening and how much of it is happening. Yeah. Right. But then how do we take that data and actually get to the root of the problem, right? Because it's not enough to say this is where the crime is happening at, right? And then act on that. When I feel like as a community, we want data. We want to take data to say what needs to be addressed to prevent the crime. You follow what I'm saying? And so we just gotta make sure that we're using the data.
And if I want, my hope is that you have an experience. The data supports that experience, and the data is actually produced by the institution that is responsible for the community. You are using their own asset to tell them that what you're doing is wrong. Yeah. I think that only would empower communities. Without that data, you have your experience. With the data, you have the experience and the asset that can support your experience. And I think that's an ironclad position to hold.
And for me, because I'm the people that you're talking about, that the data is based off of.
For sure.
Is that I used to be. No. I'm still that person because I haven't figured out how to get them to care about the data that you're going to give them and look past my black skin.
But he does have a fair point, because those decision makers don't operate in our stories and feelings. If they operate at all, it's going to be in the data and the hard facts.
The data that they own, like that the institutions own, like
that they create.
Like we are represented in the data, but they are producing the data. If the data is wrong, you're producing it. If the data is right and it supports our claims, well, now you must change. It's like
that's where I'm lost at. I'm with you. Sure. I guess now I fully understand where my dilemma is that I'm 100% with everything that you said. It's just that when I look across the table, I see the benefit of keeping people that look like me and people that have same skin tone as me that may speak a different language at a certain level, regardless if it's Hispanic, if it's African, if it's Venezuela, whatever it is, because of the benefit of keeping you separated, arguing, fighting, and in the prisons. Like, how can 13% of people be 95% of the prison thing? Like, that's just saying that the color of your skin or has dictated your path here in America, unless you sell out.
And to sort of like turn the corner, like on that point, makes me think about examples like the license plate readers, or even like the police civilian review board, right? To my knowledge, and anybody correct me if I'm wrong, but to my knowledge is those are entities that are supposed to take data and then figure out and sort of give that oversight of being like, okay, like we're seeing this happen at this rate and we're tracking it. All right, now how do we improve these situations based on this? So what I think I'm hearing Razor saying is that we don't trust the people that's handling the data, right? So then when we look at oversight, like how do we better manage this thing, right? Because you can't have oversight, but like what did you say? Like the fox can't rule the hen house, right? You remember that old saying? You know, so it's like, how do we take the data and provide it to our system, but still have that oversight to make sure that it's rightfully being sorted. You know what I mean? And like, I understand that that's a step outside of just collecting data, but like, it's really of the utmost importance, right? Like to know that the people that are sharing the data are people who don't have skin in that game, that may have the prejudices or, you know, or
if they don't look like us, they got skin in the game,
right?
Automatically. For them, their kids or anybody else. Like, that's just my mind. I want my mindset to be wrong, but my lived experience, my lived experiences tells me that it will never change.
Yeah. And that's why I'm taking a step beyond us just having the data, right? Like when we think about oversight of how we then utilize that data to hopefully make things better. So let's just say that we're in a perfect world, right? Like, what do we need to be able to take data that folks like Ckalib collect and to change for the better based on it, whether it's showing that people of color are disproportionate in any particular area of crime. Let's say that's the case, right? How do we then take that data ultimately to not just incarcerate, but to rehabilitate, right?
I'd like to ask Ckalib a question. Can you tell us what the data, when you launched this platform early part of 2025, showed you in comparison to what it's showing you now? Could you give us like a brief summary of that?
Yeah, so I've only been tracking it since February 2025, and I can tell you that the most common offense is hit and runs. Believe it or not, I think it's about 9.8% of crimes. Yeah, and you can imagine, and if you, on the app, you have offenses by crime, but then you could also look at the geographic location of those offenses. And if you just filter on hit and runs, just think of any intersection with a lot of traffic. That's where those. So it kind of makes sense that hit and runs would occur at near highways and all that sort of stuff, not in, well, hopefully roads near schools and stuff like that. But I wanted to hop on something that you said earlier. I think the only way to provide or carry out oversight is to track the data that the institution is creating. If over time you're tracking that data and there are some strange occurrences, that needs to be raised. And I can't imagine any better form of oversight than that. Better oversight would be more data, right? So let's say you have crime data, you have arrest data. Let's also look at, if we have it, health disparity data, educational data. And the unique thing about all these, what I will call like domains of data, is that when you layer them together, you will over time have a more complete picture of society and may be able to walk away with like conclusions that are along the lines of, well, you have certain amount of crimes or certain types of crimes going on in a particular area, and then you have like also poor educational outcomes in those schools that are in those same communities.
Right.
Yeah, these are now like very accurate conclusions of your community. And the representatives that we have elected to take care of those said community, I think, are responsible for listening to that and using that same data to improve upon it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So that to me is like, again, I hate to use the word again, like the same word, but like ironclad arguments and a very strong position to hold that allows you to demand change. So yeah.
No, that makes total sense. It makes me think about something that Chief Cotchis has repeatedly said, which is like the holistic approach to community improvement and community partnerships is like a soccer field. And he compared law enforcement to a goalie, right? Once the ball gets to the goalie has one job, right? And so I think that's that's a parallel to data analysis that we're talking about. It's like we can take that data, we can say this and this is happening, and we can prove it, but then we shouldn't expect police to get called. When police get a call to report to a crime, then they're doing their job to go figure out who the criminal is, and their job is to then detain that criminal if they're committing a crime, if they've been proven to commit a crime with that. I think too many times. And please don't get me wrong, I'm not excusing police at all, because we know that there's bad apples, right? But I'm saying, and we can even say that the structure itself is corrupt. But besides that, if they have their job to do, then we can't just take the data of like crime rates and stuff and say, well, like the police shouldn't be doing their job. There's other people in our community that need to take this data and be like, this is what we need to fix in our community. And your office is supposed to be taking care of that. That's not police's job to take care of fixing that element that this data is showing us that is a factor to these crime rates. Whether it's education, healthcare.
There's so much that you have to consider.
Yeah,
there's
poverty,
so much
whatever.
That's what I'm saying. Like the data that we turn in to say, okay, these are the disparities that we have, right? And like using Chief Cotchis' thing, like the police are the goalie, right? But nobody wants to talk about the condition of the field. And that's the problem, right? So as long as I'm powerful enough to tell you, okay, you can't talk about the condition of the field because I'm not going to let you into the stadium, and then I'm going to make sure the stadium isn't on a bus route, and then see, I got a smart wife. I learned a lot. So these are the things where I have my problems at. So when I sound like I am like all is lost, it's not that. It's just that I'm starting to become more of the mindset, especially as my youngest two get older, is that you have to be self-sufficient and twice as good. I'm going back to my grandfather's word, twice as good to get half the recognition, right? I want my kids to be tough, right? And I understand that the way that you weaken the men of our community is to make them not learn from other men in their community. It was the same thing. It's buck breaking all over again, right? So you make the person who loves you the most keep you from going out into danger, which also keeps you from growing. You know what I'm saying? So they have figured a way to take an oak tree and put it in a potted plant. It's still an oak tree, but it'll never become what it's supposed to be. And that's the problem that I have with why can't I go and be planted by living waters with correct sun so I can see what I can be, so I can be the greatest for my community. And the reason is because if I put you in this plant, I can market you and sell you to other people.
Oh, yes,
right. So that's where so that's why I said the more data is only going to make the untrained person angry.
Untrained.
Yeah. And then once you become angry, now the police can come in and say you're unruly.
Right.
And then if you're unruly, now we can put you back into the prison system.
Right. Yeah.
So
that's
my only problem.
Right. Yeah. The environment is created to then generate data to make you look bad.
Right.
Right.
And then you're the one who's bringing notice to it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You're saying, look at the disparities. I'm sorry. You're saying, look at the disparities over here. But at the same time, you're also getting other people that don't care nothing about you to only look at the media to show, okay, well, they locked up Joseph Johnson from such and such, instead of when they read their paper, young male who was a UVA graduate student took a bad turn. You know what I'm saying? Like, and nobody can say nothing because we're not in positions where we really control these things. And I don't mean to be bad, but even the things that we do, you only get a portion of the money that comes in for the organizations that you're part of and the things that you're creating. You know, like, I mean, that's not knocking, that's just truth. You know, and that's the problem I had with the data. Yeah.
Well, I have a quick philosophical one before Max, I guess, closes out in her fashion.
Question.
Yeah. Whatever you got. Do you believe, like, just with your knowledge, that license plate readers are a good way to track traffic of criminals? Because my understanding is that they will see if a vehicle is going into certain crime areas a lot. Like, do you feel like that, you know, like, again, like, just from your impression of it, like, do you think that's a good way to track that data?
I think there's a potential for abuse for sure.
Okay.
And that potential for abuse is a massive uncertainty, right? And uncertainties present you with dangers. So, I think there's I think there's opportunity for something unfavorable to occur.
That's fair. Yeah.
I'm actually going to ask you a question that I'm hoping to get you to kind of look at data in a way that you wouldn't typically look at it, which is kind of your projections of the adverse effect that AI may have on data.
The AI is a man-made system. So any flaws that come from men are going to reveal themselves in their systems.
Okay.
So what that means to me is the system needs to be far more equitable and far more people-focused. So I hope to be the creator of intelligence platforms that are more people-focused.
Okay.
Because then you have an AI system that is more of a teammate than an opponent, if we're keeping with the soccer reference. Right. So, that's how I imagine. I don't know if y'all are familiar, but the first soap dispensers, they were trained on white hands. So if you put your hand under a soap, it never dispensed soap. That is a very simple problem, right?
Okay, yeah. I didn't know that.
No, it's very simple. If you train the soap dispenser on darker hands, you will get soap. So, and these are algorithms. These are algorithms that have been contributing to facial recognition. These are algorithms that have, so like the same thing could be said for facial recognition. Early facial recognition systems, they had trouble tracking black faces because they weren't trained on black faces. I think if we know anything about the history of cameras were always adapted to white skin. So black people in photos historically, they were not seen as well as white faces, right? So these are all man-made systems with flaws that came from the men that created them, right? So what that tells me is that I need to be the man that creates a system that is very aware of those sort of things.
Let him cook.
Amen to that.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Indeed. But you made me think, though, the proponents of artificial intelligence would say that we are taking the best and and the brightest and everything that's right from humans, and the goal of AI is to put everything that's right and correct and knowledgeable in the computer, and everything that's that's actually flawed and false, we're not putting it in it, so that AI becomes the supreme entity that can always judge rightfully.
That can't be true. Because if you let's go back to the soap dispenser issue, right? How many Black people or how many people of color do you think were in the room when the technology was created for the soap dispenser? Probably very few. There were no people that said, hey, maybe we should train these algorithms on a diverse set of hands. That system, no matter how whatever deep learning techniques or whatever sort of data that has access to, is always going to be flawed in that manner unless it considers alternative opinions, alternative ideas, and alternative data. So the only way that you could create a strong system, I don't think there's a such thing as a superior system, is if you have a very diverse collective intelligence that is contributing to the build of those AI systems. So I don't think I can build something superior. I'm pretty confident I can build something better.
Charles, not even like he went to the soap dispenser. I'm gonna go back to the books. History itself is flawed.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So if we can't even put it in books, in writings, if we have to take, if we go back to where the civilization was created, and then we have to hide it in places and then repaint it and say what it is, or we take things like that was a negative and then it becomes popular and then it's taken from us again. You know what I'm saying? Anything from like the word cowboy to anything else. So AI is just going to be magnified because at least I had to find the book to open it to see that it was improper. AI goes all across the country because it's a digital network. So I see this because we don't, in the words of Eddie, because we don't think for ourselves all the time and we ingest the information that's just given to us because it's the easiest. I think that AI is going to be even more detrimental than the internet.
And we have a whole current generation that operates that way. Think about it.
It started with the filters on the pictures. Nino, everybody was unhappy about how they look in a picture, so they put a filter to it. So if I can do a AI version of myself and it looks good and it sounds good, then I can fake put my message out there.
She got some Nino.
Don't hag. Get on over here. Get a Max.
Question for you, Nino, that just came up. So we're talking about AI, right? Do you come on up here? Do you think that it's dangerous more so to your generation and the next generation because you may be too dependent on technology? I think that's the synopsis of what we were just saying, right? Of like, what I'm getting at? Yeah. Like, what's your opinion on AI?
All right, so my opinion on AI is, first of all, and I'd like to hear your opinions. I feel like, of course, things have been building up to people even thought it would happen, but I feel like it came around like very fast. Like it was the last 2 years or so. It really got in depth and very detailed. And you could, I seen a video where it's like Tupac was recording in his house or something. So it's like, I feel like that turnaround came around very fast to where now everybody's like in awe or shock, and not so much adapting to it. They're more so kind of just going with the course of wherever it's going to take us is going to take us, which is not allowing someone to get ahead of it. And I assume that that's kind of the purpose of it, is to not get ahead of it. But more so to the point that you were asking, I feel like it's very dangerous to the fact that I was watching something the other day and someone had brought up a point where you could say this person committed this crime and they can't prove their innocence until it's kind of like guilty until you prove yourself innocent, not vice versa, because you have to basically go against this AI or this computer from wherever this computer or creator is that developed that. So I feel like dangerous, definitely. But I feel like there's a way if people like yourself or other data collectors can definitely find a way to get on the forefront or what's the word I'm looking for? Not like decoded, not that, but kind of like
own the process of development, so it's a little bit more responsible.
Exactly. Yeah. So, so that's kind of my opinion on that. But I did want to touch something that's kind of like rewinding to the project that you created. So to Razor over there, I feel like your point you were trying to come across to his project was, you kept saying people of my skin, my color, not to discredit, what we've been through and continue to face as African Americans, but I don't feel like that's the whole objective of his data, which I know that can come across as people are automatically looking at that to be a potential negative aspect of what he's, trying to create, that being African Americans and now Hispanics, feeling that. So I just wanted to point that out, to the point of, if you feel like that is a negative effect that can come from that, how can we get ahead of that so that doesn't happen, but he still is able to create that data and have that data out there so that we can look at that, and maybe it does highlight to us, or people who feel the same as you, that African Americans are having these crimes in these, I don't know if he said 4 or 5 zip codes that, and I'm assuming your goal for this app is to expand, clearly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're only really talking about Charlottesville, but let's talk about Chicago, talk about LA and things like that. What about the drug addicts and things that are breaking into cars, breaking into homes just to get a $5 or this and that? It kind of feels like you were saying that only is African Americans, or that
No.
the potential could be that it's showing only, or they're only looking at the African Americans that are doing that.
Yeah, that's the problem I had with data. Is like data can be gathered by excellent people like him, but it also gets filtered by the time that it gets up to, even to the public. Yeah, because they say, oh, we don't need all this. This is a little too much. And we cut it down. I watch it happen all the time. Right. So I equate the data and the great work that he's doing to when people create guns. Guns are supposed to defend yourself and hunt and, sport, but they can be, for the small percentage that use them for the wrong purpose, they pretty much dictate what the landscape looks like. And that's the way I look at the gathering of data. Okay. Yeah.
Remind me of your name? Nino?
Yeah.
Nino?
Thank you for the contribution. I really
Nino,
appreciate it. I'd like to say that a couple things. One, expansion to other cities isn't my goal quite yet. I agreed when you said expansion, mainly because I thought that expansion should mean including other aspects of our current community. So let me be clear. Crime in Charlottesville is just one piece of a puzzle.
Yeah.
There are many pieces, hundreds, 1,000-piece puzzle, right? We need to look at a whole bunch of other domains that will help us have a clearer picture on crime. If you have an understanding of education, if you have an understanding of other areas of governance, if you have an understanding of health disparities, if you have an understanding on infrastructure and political participation, all these sort of things, you have a clearer understanding of society, but an even deeper understanding of crime and all the individual domains. So my hope is to develop and design systems that are a little bit more equitable. And get rid of those biases, and then be able to walk away with insights that can contribute to policy change, community change, institutional change. So that's what I envision.
Good stuff. Thank you, Nino.
Thank you, Nino.
Yeah. Very thoughtful. Good job.
All right, Ms. Max.
Yeah, that's all we got. Thank you, Ckalib.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Yes, it's a great conversation. Hope to have you back, especially as you continue to develop and modify the data system that you've created. We'd love to talk with you more about it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Always around.
Yeah. Thank you. We'll be right back. Stay with us, family.
I am nature.